So we check in midweek. We're sitting down with Kevin Iole from Yahoo Sports. Is Kevin rocking the Pirates hat?
I tell you what, I'm just loving the Pirates being on a roll now. They won, I think, 43.6% of their games. They're going, baby.
All right, and I have the Yankee shirt on. I'm not going to turn around, but it is a Jabba Chamberlain shirt because when guys struggle, I like to back them up a little bit. So
you got to say, well, hey, listen, I know all about struggling for 18 years.
Yeah, woe is me, right? You're like, shut up, Yankee fan. Speaking of struggling, Brett Rogers on Saturday got a little lesson in terms of going against a top-notch heavyweight, but we thought he was going to get a lesson the last time around. How did he compete?
Right.
How did he compete with Fedor, lump him up, break his nose, and get physically, and I think mentally destroyed by Overeem?
Yeah, I question the training that he did. I know he was in Vegas a little bit. He went to L.A., trained with Mighty Mo. Of course, got his legs kicked, tremendously by Mighty Mo. There wasn't a lot of good training for him here in Vegas when he was here. I'm not sure really that he prepared all that well for the fight. I thought, based on Brett's performance against Fedor and the heavy hands he showed in the win over Andrei Arlovsky, I really kind of liked Brett in the fight. I thought it was going to be a fight, but I looked at Brett as a guy that, was going to be able to come forward, wasn't going to be intimidated by Overeem, would match him, and I thought he was going to be the more powerful guy. Man, that was wrong. And before anything ever happened, I knew seconds into the fight Brett was in trouble because he was backing up and he was moving side to side. That is not his game. I mean, he's not Floyd Mayweather. He's not a guy that's going to give you angles and move and do all that stuff. He's going to be a guy that moves forward and gets in your face. And when I saw him doing that, I was thinking, boy, you are in trouble. And, all credit to Overeem. I mean, we could talk about what Brett Rogers did incorrectly, but I think, it's fair, and you have to say Overeem looked very good in that fight.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I thought Rogers looked intimidated at the weigh-in. I thought once they got in the cage, he looked like the smaller guy, and then he didn't fight like Brett Rogers. Overeem's an intimidating guy. He's a confident guy. Now, are we all going? I wrote like 3 pieces on Overeem. I compared him a little bit to Manny Pacquiao in terms of feeling more comfortable. No, at a bigger weight, not having to cut and drain himself down to 205. I mean, he's much bigger now. But are we going a little crazy? Do we not have to kind of factor in the fact that he is 33-11?
Yeah, I mean, he's lost to some guys that make you go, but even more than that, I mean, I just think, we need to see him consistently against top guys. And, I thought Brett was going to be one of those top guys. I thought Brett was at least a top 10 heavyweight, but, now I'm starting to question that. Not the fact that he lost, not the fact that he got knocked out in the first round. I think you could say there are guys who get knocked out in the first round of a fight and they're still top 10 in their division. But in Brett's case, maybe we were overrating him off the Fedor fight. And this is kind of playing revisionist history, and it's not fair. But let's go back. He caught Arlovsky cold. Arlovsky doesn't know a lot about him. So, anybody gets hit with one big punch, it's over. So, and then he comes in Fedor. And how seriously did Fedor take him? We don't know. That's the big question. Did Fedor really bring his A game? If he did, then maybe that fight says more about where Fedor is at the stage of his career than Rogers. But, maybe it's just as likely that Fedor, didn't really think much of Rogers, didn't, train the way he normally trains, and mentally wasn't in the same kind of condition that he is for his top challenges.
All right, well, good segue on Fedor because, as you know, I think I'm one of 4 guys out of about 27 in our poll at Yahoo who is still voting Fedor number 1, and for the first time, I'm starting to rethink that choice. I can buy Fedor maybe looking ahead of Brett Rogers, but the problem is he's had a couple of fights now where he got lumped up and he wasn't great striking against Arlovsky and Rogers back-to-back, and we've seen what's happened with Rogers in this last fight, and Andre's getting outboxed by guys like Antonio Silva, who's good, but maybe this is really starting to say a lot about Fedor.
I mean, until somebody beats him, you have to give him that respect. And, he's beaten a lot of good guys, and it's been a long time. And how difficult. I was talking with Todd Duffy about that in this sport to go, with as many fights as Fedor has done without a fluke happening, the first Frank Mir fight over Brock Lesnar. Lesnar's dominating the fight. Frank catches his knee. If you looked at the 2 walking out of the cage, no way you would ever say Frank Mir won the fight. So it's kind of a fluke ending. I don't want to take anything away from Frank's win because, that's the kind of fighter he is. But the point I'm making is, Brock had most of that fight. But Fedor's never let that happen to him. So I think we still got to give him the respect because he hasn't lost that fight. It's been a long time, but maybe there are signs, and maybe it's not his decline, but everybody else is catching up. He set such a high standard.
Now, you sound like the guy who's voting for Fedor, and I sound like the guy who's anti-Fedor, and I still have him number one. I didn't say I'm moving him, but for the first time, I have a little doubt. And I wonder if there's a little doubt from the promotion with M1 in terms of matching him up. I wrote a story a couple days ago saying, hey, Overeem's backed this guy into a corner now. Fedor's got to get by Verdum next month, but hey, you know what, Fedor? There's no avoiding this one.
Yeah, I don't see how he can. I mean, if he does not fight Overeem, then he's got big problems. Because number one, who does he fight? I mean, who does Strikeforce/CBS sell him with if he does not fight the heavyweight champion? I mean, it's ridiculous. So he really has to. I think it's going to be a hard sell for them, on the fight in June because, fighting, Verdum. I mean, Verdum, did not cover himself in glory during his stint in the UFC. No great shakes getting knocked out by Junior Dos Santos. But, I mean, I didn't think he looked good in his fight with Arlovsky. He certainly was not a big thing in the UFC. Certainly, I don't think anybody had him as a top 5 heavyweight in the UFC. Now, he's going in there. He's getting a title shot over a guy that, not a title shot, I guess. I keep thinking of Fedor as the champion,
right.
But he's getting the gold standard match over a guy who has the belt and who has a really impressive victory. So, I think they're going to have a hard time selling the next fight, and if Fedor beats Verdum, it's really going to be hard for them to sell anything but Alistair Overeem.
So, is all of this speculation looking ahead with Strikeforce and Showtime and CBS, is it pointless? Because when you start to look at numbers, I mean, for replay fights, a set of fights on Spike with UFC to do almost 900,000 viewers, and the Showtime, a solid card, doing 300,000 viewers, and now you got Fedor again on Showtime coming up in June. What's the future? I mean, how much can you pay guys and only draw audiences of 3, 4, and 500,000 people?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions there. Now, Fedor did $5 million when he fought on CBS, so he had a great showing in November on CBS. But they have to be worried about that, Steve. There's no doubt about it. The UFC put on a really good fight. They showed the Korean Zombie and Leonard Garcia, among others, on Saturday night against it. But you know what? That's something that you would think people they've already seen it, or they'll DVR it and they're going to watch the Showtime card. But it looks like they didn't. The one thing we have to point out that's fair here is that Spike is basic cable, so that has a lot bigger universe than Showtime, which is a premium cable. But the bottom line is it doesn't matter when the numbers come in because they need to get people watching their show. And I would say this, if the UFC was on Showtime, I think they'd be doing more than 300,000 viewers. So that's, the onus is on Scott Coker and Strikeforce, as well as the folks at Showtime and CBS, to really start promoting this better and getting the word out there. They use an outside agency that does a good job, but they need to get their own marketing and their own PR working on this and doing a better and more professional job of getting the word out, because they do have some good fights and good things going on. They have to let the public know that.
All right, good deal, Kevin.
Thank you, Steve.